Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and got some exciting news today because we've got a new product introduction from our friends at WorkSharp. I got my buddy Josh here to tell us all about it, and this is a new iteration of the WorkSharp in my mind, kind of the signature product, the Knife and Tool Sharpener Mark II. And Josh is here to tell us about it. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm excited about this one. I think this is going to be a big hit for us, for our brand, and hopefully something that your audience really cares about or is excited about as well.
I think so. I mean, the original knife and tool sharpener that you guys did, that's kind of how you guys made your name, or it's what put you guys on the map. Obviously, you guys do a ton of different sharpening products out there today. They're things I like to recommend a lot, but that doesn't mean that I still don't love the original. And you've just improved it for 2021, essentially.
Indeed, yeah. The original knife and tool sharpener came out something like, this is before my time, but something like 2009, 2010. So it's been 10 years on the market, and there's been small changes here and there, upgrades, efficiencies. It was time for us to overhaul and listen to some feedback and deliver a better product that really is an evolution of the WorkSharp knife and tool sharpener that made our brand what it is, and not reinventing the wheel. This is something that was good, and like you said, it's still a great sharpener out there. A lot of people use it, and I'm excited to show you what we brought that's new and exciting.
Well, let's get right into it then.
Awesome.
Excellent.
First up, if you haven't seen this, it still looks very similar to the original knife and tool sharpener. WorkSharp pioneered flexible belt sharpening for a consumer use, and this was inspired by looking at knife makers and understanding how they make and sharpen knives. They use belts very similar to the belts that we use. In fact, one of the partnerships we have and have developed over the years is with knife maker Ken Onion. If you're familiar with WorkSharp, you'd be familiar that we have a couple of products in collaboration with Ken, and we use a very similar belt assortment using the Norton and the Norax family of belts to deliver the same type of edge sharpening that is done in custom shops, in manufacturing shops, and now scaled down into 1/2 inch by 12 inch or 3/4 inch or even 1 by 18 inch belts. Something that can fit inside of on a table in an apartment if that's your lifestyle.
Yeah, I've always said that's a great point, or a great selling point of these is you get those professional type of results in something that's going to fit in a kitchen drawer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It brings it down so that you don't have to have a 2 by 72 in your shop to feel like you can get the same edge as you can on a knife that comes right out of the factory. On the original knife and tool sharpener, it offers two different angles, a 20 and a 25-degree guide. Those are per side, so a 40 and a 50-degree inclusive edge. On the Mark II sharpener, we delivered that same angle selection in one single guide option with a toggle switch to adjust the angle. So there's less parts, and you can change over faster from one to another. One of the other features that we heard that was really a favorite from the Ken Onion edition was a front edge guide. And so this is a place where you rest your knife on a guide as you draw it through the sharpener, allowing for a lot of control and stability, maintaining the angle, even when there's just the very tip of your knife left touching the guide. This gives you that consistency all the way through.
That way the belt's not going to kind of pull the blade away from you.
Exactly. Yeah. Something that was, with practice, and those of us who use these a lot, was not an issue. But for somebody who is developing the skill, that's definitely a learning hurdle to overcome. On the original knife and tool sharpener, there's a variable switch from either a pulse on or an always on that allows for grinding applications for sharpening larger tools. On this sharpener, we just have a trigger that's on and off, similar to a cordless drill. When it's on, it's on. If you release the trigger, it's off. There's no hold on position. But we did introduce two different speeds. And so there's a low speed for sharpening, and there's a high speed for grinding applications. The same belts are used on the Mark II sharpener as they are on the original sharpener. There's a an extra coarse, this green belt for sharpening or for grinding, excuse me. This may be used on hatchets and axes, maybe lawnmower blades that need a fair amount of work if there's chips in them. I do not recommend it for knives. Maybe if your machete has a huge chunk taken out of it, then that's an opportunity where there's going to be a lot of steel removal. But for knives, I would start with the coarse 120 grit belt. This is going to remove material quickly and set that edge. I would expect only maybe 2 to 3 passes per side for knives that are dull to have an edge restored. If the knife is fairly sharp, but it's your first time sharpening on this sharpener, then maybe only 1 pass is needed. You're going to establish the new convex edge shape and then progress down to the belt that I have on here now, which is the 6000 grit. And this is really a ribbon belt sharpener. It's a micro mesh. It's really, really flexible and forms really well to the shape of the blade, and very, very high grit. Like I said, 6000 grit. It's kind of like power stropping. This is the belt that I leave on the sharpener, and I bring my knives back and just touch them up on that. It removes very, very little material, mostly just straightening up any burrs and polishing the edge. One of the things that makes the knife and tool sharpener go so much farther beyond just a knife sharpener is in the name. It's a tool sharpener as well. So I mentioned that it sharpens hatchets, axes, lawnmower blades. Very simple, easy to use, and in reality, I find myself using the original for that almost more than I sharpen knives with it. And I'm blessed to work at WorkSharp, so I've got a handful of sharpeners, you can imagine, and have different ways of sharpening it at different times, usually during Zoom meetings on my desk on the field sharpener. But
so is that something where you might use that 50-degree edge angle specifically, or actually a kind of a corollary question I had, is that edge angle unit removable as well if someone wanted to do some freehand work?
Yeah, that's right where I'm getting. So
I jumped in front of you. I'm sorry then.
Indeed, this front edge guide flips down and gets out of the way and locks into place. And then the guide slides up to open up this the belt cassette on its own. There's a trigger here on the back that allows this to rotate and lock into a few different positions, allowing you to grind and bring the sharpener to the job. So you can clamp an axe or a mower blade into the vise on the workbench, and then you've got this flexible belt that wraps right around the edge of the blade and sharpens really well. You get a high degree of control. It feels just like any other power tool in your hand, and is very easy to use in that sense.
Great.
If you want, you can also use this and bring your knife, to the belt, and you're going to eyeball it. But you could, if you're comfortable with that, that's definitely something you can do. We wanted to offer access to the belt so that you can get your tool to the edge.
Sure. I mean,
so you can get your edge to the tool.
Right. No, I'm definitely very familiar with that from the Ken Onion unit I've used for a number of years before I upgraded myself to a dual 2x48 setup. But I'm a nerd like that. But I would actually freehand on the Ken Onion unit just like that, with the edge angle taken off. And again, getting back to people are going to use it a little bit differently maybe than you thought. I would come in on one side, freehand, and then I would actually reverse the knife and keep it on that same side so the abrasive was going away from the edge. It's good to have those options.
Yeah, absolutely. This is and this, not to get into it too much, but I find so many different options for this tool. Like, this is a weird one, and I'll throw it out there, but I heard the other day from someone in customer service that they heard someone trims their dog's nails with the abrasive on here. They set one of the coarse belts, and the flexible belt around it is I've not tried that, but perhaps it is a decent option. You can imagine that there's plenty of possibilities. One of the things I didn't mention is that it does sharpen scissors. So there's a 65-degree guide right here.
Oh, cool.
That always stays on there whether or not the guide is on or not. And it actually has a magnet built into it as well. So it holds the scissor arm in position as you run it across the belt. I recommend always using this fine micro mesh belt and not using the coarse belt. With scissors, usually you don't need to remove a lot of material. You're just trying to stand up that edge so that you've got a really sharp, it's not quite a 90. Obviously it's a 65. So whatever that is, a 65 and a 30 or 25, gets you right about to a 90, and great bypass cutting can happen at that angle.
Very cool. I'm really excited by it. I say that a lot, but I've got a big soft spot in my heart for these belt-based systems. I've put them to good use over the years. I like the improvements on this original, which will be, taking the place of the base unit that's out there or has been out there historically. I especially like the addition of the extra speed options. That's a great little thing. Is the high about the same as where the old unit was, or do you go like a little bit on either side of where the original was?
Yeah, so the high is right about where the old one was. It's really interesting. As we were doing some early testing, we had the high speed and we gave it to people. And just because there's two speeds, we were wondering, where do people come in and test this? And in an era of, we used a lot of in-home testing and actually got real people's hands on it. People who had used the original, or people who maybe this was their first knife sharpener, and we really wanted to get the opinions and the perspective of all customers. And when they started and then they were on the high setting, they kind of backed up like, whoa, this is really fast. And the interesting piece to us was that's the speed we were running on the original. Mm-hmm. And so maybe it was coming in a little fast. And one of the pieces that was very intentional about that is that this is a very quick way to sharpen knives. Mm-hmm. Something that I hear a lot about in industrial kitchens. They'll use a tool like this, or in butcher shops, or sportsmen who are in the middle of maybe they've got a deer that they're butchering and breaking down in the garage, and they're doing a lot of protein prep and boning work. And they gotta sharpen really quick and get back to it. They don't have time to be sitting down at at a whetstone or some other traditional sharpening methods. And so the speed was really a performance function that delivered a quick result. And now we come back to this, and as people have, I think the whole knife community has evolved a little bit in understanding of edge maintenance and sharpening, and so we thought, okay, what we can do now is educate on why it could be a slower process, and slow down the steel removal, and allow for a little bit more understanding and control rather than just get in, get out, get the job done. So the lower speed slows it down a little bit, and we recommend that for sharpening knives. The high speed is right about where it was on the original, which is great for sharpening tools and grinding applications.
Very cool. I am, like I said, I'm excited.
I am too, and I think it's going to do very well for us as a business. I hope it's a tool that the knife community, the sportsman community, the DIY community finds really useful. It meets a niche that I think we found the first time, and this is something that we hope to provide even more value.
Well, I'm really thrilled that you guys are offering that slower speed on the less expensive unit than the standard Kent Onion. That was kind of something. I know it's a bit more expensive, but I used to push people towards that unit over the base unit because you had that slower speed. So to get that at the lower price of this unit is great. Not quite as low as the unit it's replacing, but I think when you adjust it for inflation, actually, this might actually be cheaper than when you first introduced the unit over 10 years ago. What can you tell us about the price?
Yeah, indeed. So the original knife and tool sharpener that is phasing out is street price is $69. The retail was $89, and this is jumping up $10 on each of those. So it's going to be $79 street value and $99 MSRP. I think it's totally worth it. You mentioned inflation. That price had held for the last 10 years. This is somewhere that I think we're committed to delivering value in the sharpening space, both in the features that we deliver and in the price points that hits. That's a cornerstone for us as a brand and a company, and we want to continue to deliver that value. Speaking of, I did forget one quick point that might be worth that $10 increase all on its own. We decided to line the guides with a small piece of leather. And we did this because we heard from customers that there would get blade dust or accumulation, either abrasive accumulation or steel accumulation on that hard plastic face. And on that hard plastic face, when it came in contact with your knife, specifically a knife that might have a coating or a high polish, there was a possibility for scratching. We always recommend to keep your machine clean, but we know that the reality of using and hardworking everyday people who are going to be quickly trying to get an edge back on their knives, that takes a back seat. So the leather guides will provide a very soft touch for your knife. We still recommend keeping it clean. Obviously, there could be accumulation of debris in the leather as well, but probably not going to affect the knife face nearly as much.
I mean, that's what I like about what you guys do now and for the last several years is you're thinking about those little details. You're coming out with truly new products in the sharpening sphere and thinking about how they're going to be used and building them that way rather than just putting out a new thing. Like you always have that attention to detail that I appreciate.
It's really fun to be a part of a company that, probably the coolest position in our company is the brand manager position. And the guy you'll see if you ever go to a trade show, if you ever go to a blade show or something like that, you'll see Kyle Crawford, who his job is to represent the voice of the customer back to us at WorkSharp. So it's his job to be living this, to be doing it. He's a knife nerd enthusiast. He's an auto mechanic geek, rebuilding his Mercedes or dropping a diesel engine. And what he does is make sure that he understands who the person is who's using our tools. And then he works with our engineering team to say, that's not good enough. The person coming to this doesn't have that level of understanding, or they do have this level of understanding. Give them added features that allow them to customize the knife on their own. Or usually, and in a case like this, we offer a little bit of both. Obviously, we leave you belt access at different points to either come in and do some custom work, to grind on your own, to dream with your mind what you could do with a detailed grinder, or get in, get out, get a sharp knife really fast and get back to work.
I love it. Well, unless you've got anything else, I think that about covers things.
That's it. This will be on shelves in stores and at the Knife Center April 1st. You guys might have pre-orders ahead of that?
That's our hope. I'm hoping for those of you watching this video, by the time we post this, we will have a link for pre-order down in the description section. If not, we'll just point you to the WorkSharp page where you can see all the other cool stuff and pay attention to our socials. But really excited to be helping debut this model. I haven't held it in my hands yet, but all signs point to good things, I think.
We'll get you one right away so you can get some hands-on, do a review, whatever you want to do. But I'm excited for you to get it and for customers. I'm excited to hear the feedback and hopefully we get a great, valuable tool in your hands.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much. People watching at home, thank you as well. We'll see you all next time.
See you later.